they're going to have to be in the active roster. So it's really those fringe guys who have been in the minor leagues for a long, long time. They haven't had their opportunity, and another team could really use their services.
The Rays are a unique organization, but I can't remember them making a lot of Rule 5 selections.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Rays, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays, from game analysis to player interviews. We've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. My name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano,
bringing you expert analysis and passionate discussions about our beloved Rays.
Whether you're a diehard fan who vividly remembers Longo's Game 162 just like us,
or you remember the early Devil Ray days of Wade Boggs or Carl Crawford,
we are here to break down every play, every trade, and every milestone. In fact, this is our 6th season covering the Rays daily.
In every season up till 2024, they've gone to the playoffs that we have covered the team, but you can still grab your favorite Rays gear, settle in, and subscribe to our Locked On Rays YouTube channel and other podcast platforms. You can also find us on X and Instagram at Locked On Rays.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
All right, Ulises, on today's program, we're going to take a little breather from the stadium discussion, the Trop discussion, the Stu Sternberg discussion. Boy, that's frustrating and annoying, and the story that never ends, evidently. And it's not going to end because there is going to be a vote or a delay at Tuesday's Pinellas County Commission meeting. So be sure you live stream that when you get the opportunity.
Can I just do a parenthesis on this before we get into the Rule 5 and the adds and the subtractions and all that? I had a vision.
Oh boy.
Okay. I had a vision, not a great vision, but a vision that, you know how we always wanted to get the team in Tampa?
Mm-hmm.
We finally did.
For a year.
But then that's it. You get to enjoy it for a year in Tampa, and then they gone. I had a vision today, and it wasn't a pretty one, and I just came up with that. I was like, damn.
Well, I need a follow-up vision after that. Is it going to continue to be the Tampa Bay Rays? Is it going to be the Charlotte Rays? Is it going to be the Nashville Rays, the San Antonio Rays, the Kalamazoo Rays? Who knows?
I'll for the second vision, I'll have to go to the desert and do things over there.
Do some ayahuasca and see what that premonition gives you.
Well, Jim Morrison, and find out about the truths of life.
All that good stuff. All right, we do have discussion on 40-man roster crunch and the deadline to add prospects to the 40-man roster to protect them from the Rule 5 draft. The Hot Stove League is heating up, and this is just a part of that discussion.
Yes, we do. Should we get folks a little refresher on the Rule 5 draft?
A refresher is always good on the Rule 5 draft because there does seem to be some confusion, and it's always just good to give an update and a renewal of what it is, what it means, and how it works.
Okay, people. So it's held each December, the Rule 5 draft, and it allows clubs without a full 40-man roster to select certain non-40-man roster players from other clubs. Clubs draft in reverse order of the standings from the previous season. Players signed at age 18 or younger need to be added to their club's 40-man roster within 5 seasons, or they become eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Players who signed at age 19 or older need to be protected within 4 seasons. As I said earlier, these are teams that don't have a full 40-man, which means that not every club will make a selection. Mm-hmm. But those that do pick a player, they must pay $100,000 to the club from which said player was selected. So if a player was selected from the Rays organization that was not protected in the 40-man, the Rays would be receiving $100,000. Now, Rule 5 draft picks are assigned directly to the drafting club's 26-man roster, the active roster, in the next season. Should the players clear waivers he must be offered back to the previous team for $50,000 and can be outrighted to the minors only if his original club does not wish to reacquire him. Rule 5 draft pick can be placed on the Major League injured list, but he must be active for a minimum of 90 days to avoid being subject to the aforementioned roster restrictions in the next campaign. Now, all of that being said,
yes,
let's remember one critical part of that. That is, the Rule 5 draft picks are assigned directly to the drafting club's 26-man roster.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very important factor in all of this, because it means, oh my gosh, we didn't protect this guy. Oh my gosh, we didn't protect this guy. Oh, we didn't protect this guy. It's okay, because even if you're the catcher that you didn't protect and he's in Double-A and he had 20 games in Double-A and you think he's going to be the you-know-what and you're really crazy about him, dude, is a team prepared to put a Double-A catcher that only had 20 at-bats in their 26-man roster? No. So that's one of the critical things to remember about this 40-man roster and crunch and the Rule 5 draft, is that just because they're unprotected doesn't mean that everybody's going to be picking them, because they're going to have to be in the active roster. So it's really those fringe guys who have been in the minor leagues for a long, long time. They haven't had their opportunity, and another team could really use their services. That's what this thing is.
Yeah. And the team, like you mentioned, believes that their services can be rendered and utilized with the big league club. So I don't see many Double-A catchers getting that big of a boost right away, unless that team just wants to tank and lose and wants to hurt that particular player's development. And, the Rays are a unique organization, but I can't remember them making a lot of Rule 5 selections over the last several years, or since we've been doing the podcast. I can't even remember the guy's name, but didn't they get a lefty bat a couple years ago that was in the Reds organization, got a cup of coffee with the big league club, and then went elsewhere?
Grady?
Brian O'Grady, I believe.
O'Grady,
So
he was, and Kevin Kelly, right? Rule 5, but he was a funky one because it's like the Guardians had the Rockies like hold their spot, and the Rays like traded their spot, something like that. Like, it wasn't the Rays actually picking Kevin Kelly. I think it was a team picking Kevin Kelly and then trading them to it was already understood that this was what was going to happen.
Yeah. Whenever I think of the Rule 5, I think of the most notable, or one of the most notable ads of all time was when the Marlins got Dan Uggla back in the day. But those are few and far between as far as that goes. So we do have news on that front. The Rays did protect a couple players and opted not to protect a couple other notable names as well. And we'll get to that. But first, we have to tell the audience something very important.
The only ticketing app that will give you complete peace of mind with your purchase is Game Time. Why? I'll explain it. You can see the view from your seat on your phone before you buy. So if you have some anxiety about, hey, what am I going to see here? They got that covered. And if you're also getting betrayed by dollar figure sometimes, and it says $20.99, and then you go to the last page and it says $50.99, well, guess what? Game Time doesn't play like that. Game Time shows you the whole total before that. It's the opposite of the stadium deal, people. They give you the dollars in front without you having to guess what the final number will be. And for you guys, you need to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, and you can do that with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. You use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Kevin, what time is it?
Game time.
Kevin, we all have to do something to make ourselves feel better. And because we're getting old in age, sometimes the body doesn't work as it used to. And we got to get aligned. And we have to go somewhere where there are no scheduling hassles, where there are no insurance hassles, where they can see you in the evening after work, in the weekends without an appointment. Walk-ins are cool. I just don't know what that name of that place is. Kevin, can you help me out?
There's only one place, and that is the Joint Chiropractic, if
That
I'm sure.
is correct, Kevin. That is correct. And guess what? If you're a Rays fan, if you're a Bucks fan, they've got a tremendous promo for you. You can get your first visit for $19. I know you guys spend more on that on fast food, okay? So $19, something good for your body, okay? You head over to Buccaneers.com. You check out the contest and promotions section under the fans tab. You download this offer. It's a great deal for great fans. Head to thejoint.com to find your nearest Tampa area location today.
So, Ulises, we intended this episode to be a discussion on who the Rays would protect, who they would not protect, because the deadline was technically Tuesday, the 19th at 6 p.m., but the Rays were getting ahead of the ball game, and maybe they're trying to take Tuesday off for Pinellas County Commission meetings. But they've gone ahead and done the work for us. So they have added left-handed pitchers Joe Rock and Ian Seymour, one of your faves, Ian Seymour. You've banged on the drum for him over the last couple of years. They have protected them from being eligible for the Rule 5 draft. So a couple of lefty pitchers who have unique and distinct profiles who the Rays believe down the line may be able to help them and may be able to save money, because as we'll get later on in the episode, the Rays have a lot of pitchers that are arbitration eligible, and this could be a cost savings maneuver and plug and play maneuver and say, hey, why do we have to pay another guy $3 or $4 million or $2 million when we can pay Joe Rock and Ian Seymour $700,000 for like-minded production?
Who was the pitcher? Criswell. They can be Cooper Criswell, for the Rays. Yeah. Like, just, hey, we need some innings here. Somebody's got to pitch these things. Hey, Joe Rock, can you take the rock? Damn, I missed that. Hey, Joe, can you take the rock? That would have been better.
That's anyway. A good pitcher name, though. Joe Rock, that
tremendous.
Fits. And it's interesting if we're going to start with Joe Rock. 6'6", 200 pounds, multiple pitches. His numbers aren't that great on the periphery, but I think it is his unique delivery and arm slot and basically what he does that the Rays feel like they can manipulate and utilize and throw hitters off balance, that they see a guy that maybe a starter, perhaps a starter, but usually in most cases a multi-inning reliever, because the knock on Rock is that he can get through in order one time through, maybe two times through, but three times through is where he has trouble, and he gets into a bind of having that one blow-up inning. So they're trying to harness and figure all that out, and he was the guy that was acquired from the Rockies organization for Greg Jones, former, one-time friend of the program, always a friend of the program. And, we didn't think much of the move, but now we are. Joe Rock could be a player for this team going forward.
Yeah, he was ranked number 22 in the Rays farm system. So top 30, I think, gives you a little bit of cachet. And him and Seymour were the only ones in the top 30 prospect list for the Rays that needed to be protected. Like, this was their time. Yes. And when we go back to the first segment, when we say that these guys are that the important factor out of all of that is they need to be added to the 26-man roster. I could easily see both Seymour and both Rock being of use to any major league club. So that's who the teams usually target, are those French guys that could potentially give a boost or just cover some stuff or just be a replacement player in the major leagues and not just a guy that you love who's in Double-A.
Right. Yeah. And then Ian Seymour, again, one of your faves. He really, since he became part of the Rays organization, was a pretty high draft pick years ago out of Virginia Tech. He really didn't lose a step or lose a beat. I mean, he was putting up really good numbers on the onset, but then he had Tommy John surgery, which led to a setback. But interestingly, from that, I believe his first season back from Tommy John surgery, he threw as many innings as probably most anybody in the Rays organization, and definitely the minors between Double-A and Triple-A. He dinged out about 145 innings. So that's an impressive comeback for him. And the numbers across the board are really, really impressive. Different build than Joe Rock at, Rock being 6'6" and Seymour being 6 foot and 200 pounds. But Seymour has that violent delivery that the Rays feel like that, again, can throw hitters off balance. That's what you're trying to do at the end of the day. So
yeah, and when you look at Seymour's line, 9.4 and 2.35 ERA, 27 games started. You mentioned the innings, 145. That's pretty impressive. I did some quick math here with the amount of pitches thrown and the innings covered, and the game started. So he usually sits around 80 pitches on average, and covers at least 5 innings. So you called it. Usually when guys are doing something in Triple-A, knock it off. If a guy has a 380 on base in Triple-A, that's a 330, baby. Like you have to get that major league dent. So that could be his major league dent is, okay, so he's providing 5 in Triple-A. Maybe he gives you 3. Maybe he gives you 4. Could he give you 5? Sure. There could be an evolution there. But when you need him, maybe in 2025, and you just need him for a spot, that could be Seymour's to get.
Yes. Now with these moves, because the Rays added 2 players, they had to drop off a player from the 40-man, and the guy who got DFA'd was Austin Shenton, who got limited action in the majors. Honestly, if we look at his numbers, better than a lot of other Rays players from the 2024 season, but it's a case of you just don't have a spot for him. The Rays, I guess, view him as not being versatile enough and replaceable, and maybe Austin Shenton can go and tag on with another organization that needs a bat and maybe play for a couple years after that. But it goes back to the discussion of we can't get so glowy about these prospects, because I remember when he was acquired to the Rays, and we saw the highlights and we saw the numbers in Double-A and Triple-A, and we were starstruck by that. But at the end of the day, it most likely doesn't work out for one reason or another. So best to Austin Shenton. Unfortunate that he got DFA'd, but I mean, if you couldn't find a way, for whatever reason, the Rays didn't value you enough to put you in the lineup regularly with that offense, then that tells me something.
Sometimes you would forget that he was on the bench because there were opportunities where he could be used, and they flat out refused to use Austin Shenton. Like, we're talking Taylor Walls at bat. Austin Shenton's there. It's against a righty, and they went with Taylor Walls. Blatant points during the season when he was still with the major league club where you're like, why are you not using him? Kind of same thing happened to Cameron Meisner too. You're like, oh crap, yeah, that's right, he's on the team. Like, he's on the bench, but they never use him. Like, it's a shame, and you're not kidding. Like, I know, the average, the batting average wasn't there at 214, and but look at the on base at 340, the slug at 405. That's a 745 OPS.
Yeah, in
very limited time with 19 games and 50 at bats. But it's maybe it is the defensive liability or something like that. But I mean,
or they just view him as a 4A player because, I mean, he went back down to Triple-A and he slugged 600, which is basically what he's been doing his entire minor league career, seemingly.
And you know what? This might be kind of a, oh man, you're talking crap, but it's not. Look, The Rays one time, 3-4 years ago, they chose to go for Ji-Man Choi instead of Nathaniel Lowe.
Yeah.
That was their option. They said, you know what? Choi is going to be a better option at first because we just don't like how Nate looks at first base. Hey, Kevin, can you remind me who has a gold glove? Nathaniel Lowe or Ji-Man Choi?
That would be Nathaniel Lowe.
That would be Nathaniel Lowe. So again, the Rays have an impressive front office, people.
Yeah.
It makes top 3 of the 30 teams in MLB, and it ain't third. They're really good. Just because they're really good and one of the best doesn't mean that they don't miss. The Rays missed 2, and that was a big miss. And hopefully Austin Shenton is not a miss. But I am also hoping that he has a great career too. So the fact that, they moved on because of the defensive capabilities, they also thought Nathaniel Lowe sucked and he got a gold glove. And I know gold gloves are not the end all be all for defensive metrics, but hey.
Yeah. Well, I think Nathaniel Lowe was a better offensive performer if we compare the numbers than Ji-Man Choi as well. Although you also had the, whole fan favorite thing and being beloved and all that. But to your point, the Rays aren't perfect. They make mistakes. They whiff on players. They may not see the potential in certain players. Just go back to the list of catchers that they didn't give a fair shake to. But maybe the most glaring one to me in recent memory was Jake Cronenworth. He did literally everything possible. Hitting 350, hitting 370 in Triple-A. Even talk about him being a two-way player at one point. He never, I don't even think he ever got an at bat with the Rays. He never got a fair shake. And look at him now, multiple time All-Star, signed a 7-year, $80 million contract extension with the Padres. And I know he's come back down to earth a little bit, but hey, you look at his line over the last couple of years, I would insert that in the Rays roster.
If you looked at the Rays offense last year, I think you can insert a lot of baseball players into that lineup and immediately become better.
Yes. All right. We have more to discuss, but first we have to tell the audience something very important. All right. It is time to tell you about FanDuel, our friends over there. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. That is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, back at it here. Final segment of the program. Couple names that were surprising out there by the Rays media and Twitter community that weren't protected by the Rays. Outfielder Jake Mangum, as well as right-handed pitcher Evan Reifert. So again, just because you don't add these guys doesn't mean they're going to get picked up by another organization and placed on their 26-man roster. Although I will say, you look at the numbers of Mangum, you look at the numbers of Reifert, they're pretty good. So remains to be seen on whether those guys will stay with the organization or get picked up by another club.
What do you think is going to happen with both of those guys?
I would think I'm a little bit less certain on Reifert. I think he could possibly get picked up. Like the Rays do all the work to develop a pitcher, and then he goes off and has success elsewhere. Mangum at 28 years old, I guess there's really nothing else to prove for him, but I just see a case of our team's really chomping at the bit for Jake Mangum. Again, it kind of goes back to my point with Austin Shenton. Like if he was really that good or he could really contribute in some meaningful way, why wasn't he getting at bats with the big league club? Especially
Right.
like at that point, with as historically bad as that offense was, you just keep giving different guys shots until they show you something. So,
but they refused to do that, and they put out Johnny DeLuca for 400 plus at bats without having to do so. So Jake Mangum was there. Why didn't they use him? Cameron Meisner was there. Why didn't they use him? Austin Shenton was there. Why didn't they use him? Like, they have to have something on him. But yeah, he was an 800 OPS guy in 104 games in Triple-A. So Jake Mangum, I'm with you. I think Reifert is more likely to get picked up. I think the cachet of being a Rays farmhand when you're a pitcher is different than being a Rays 800 OPS guy at 28 years old. It just hits different. If you were in another organization, okay, but Rays haven't really had a lot of luck developing hitters as they have with pitchers. So advantage Reifert on getting picked up by someone for sure.
Yeah. Something we are going to beat the Rays with, it is the tender, non-tender deadline. So by 8 p.m. Eastern time on November 22nd, which if I have my math right, that's a Friday, teams must formally tender contracts for 2025 to their players without guaranteed deals, including those eligible for arbitration. Any non-tendered players immediately become free agents. The Rays have already done some background work, signing right-handed pitcher Cole Sulser, one of their 12 arbitration-eligible players, to a 2025 contract. So briefly, Ulises, I'm going to run through these names. And after I run through these names, I want you to tell me who you think is going to get non-tendered, if any of them.
Okay.
Maybe the Rays tender contracts to all 12. We have Colin Poche. We have Zach Littell. We have Tyler Alexander, Drew Rasmussen, Dylan Carlson, Cole Sulser. Well, that's already decided. Taylor Walls, Garrett Clevenger, Ben Wortvet, Jose Siri, best name in baseball, Richard Lovelady, a.k.a. Dick Lovelady, and Shane Boz.
Great assortment of names there. I don't see how you tender Dylan Carlson.
I agree, especially when he has upwards of 4 years of service time and is projected to make $2.7 million. I know that he had like one good week with the Rays, and then it was pretty much all downhill from there, which is unfortunate because Carlson seemed to be a guy that, okay, maybe a little bit of a reclamation project after all the injuries that he witnessed and went through. But like at one point, he seemed to be one of the next stable guys in all of baseball when he was with the Cardinals. And that's just what happens, where you have a good year and a half, 2 years, you win Rookie of the Year, get an all-star appearance. And not saying that Carlson did all that, but he was showing to be that type of player. And then before you know it, you have a couple setbacks and you're down to the wire, and your career could be over with the snap of a finger.
It's crazy. With the Rays, he played 37 games. This is his slash line: 219, 299, 316, 615 OPS. We have way too many 600 OPS guys, and this is a guy who is not going to be a starter whatsoever. No. $3 million for the Rays. Like if it was to be a Yankees deep bench guy, I would say yeah, they probably will keep him. Dodgers or whatever, but the Rays, $3 million. Let's on that list, Kevin. Jose Siri makes less than that. Yeah. Shane Boz makes less than that. Drew Rasmussen makes less than that.
Yes.
There's no way that you could argue with Dylan staying on the team. I feel like he is the biggest non-tender candidate.
And that's where you go back and say, okay, well, we're not going to tender Dylan Carlson. Let's give a prospect a shot. Let's give Cameron Meisner a fair shake. Anybody else a fair shake for that point. Mm-hmm. And we know that the Rays are going to have to do some rewiring with their budget seemingly this offseason. And that's a good way to, maybe cut a couple $1 billion there. So out of all those guys, those 12 guys, technically 11, with Sulser already decided, anybody else you see being non-tendered, or pretty much everybody else is fair game right now, because I guess some of the conversation is, well, the Rays just added 2 left-handed pitchers to their 40-man roster, so maybe there's a left-handed pitcher or 2 on the hook.
I could see the argument for a Clevenger. I could see the argument for a Tyler Alexander.
Yeah.
I think Poche is gone, but not by non-tendering him. I think he's going to probably be traded.
Yeah, you tender him, then trade him. Tender and trade.
The tender and trade. The T-squared approach. Yep. Yeah, I could make, but out of all of those names, I just feel like, on the social media, that meme with like all like military dudes, like in the army, like behind a wall, and they're like all like, okay, and there's like one
Guns
clown
out
in the middle.
Yeah.
That's how I feel reading this list. I'm like, there's a obvious name here, folks.
Right. And some of the other ones you can't really quite decide. I mean, I know you want to say Taylor Walls, but Taylor Walls is getting picked up for,
yeah, of course,
$1.25 million, something like that, because that's just the Rays' MO. So what do you think? Put it in the comments. Who you think will get tendered? Who you think will get non-tendered? Should be interesting to see how that plays out. All right. In the meantime, hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you tomorrow.